Hey everyone, it's Carl again, and I was looking to bring a new NPC into my campaign the other day, and I was trying to make sure that it was interesting, that players would be excited about interacting with this NPC. And so I started to think, what makes an NPC interesting? What will make people gravitate towards them? And so I had some thoughts. I'll share them with you. Hi, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango, and if you like what you're watching, please like, subscribe. I know we're not going to be famous, but it'd really be cool to see those numbers go up, just because. So anyway, let's get right into it. I have a campaign I'm running right now, which is kind of this Gods Awaken cyberpunk campaign, and the players have an opportunity to start interacting with people who are starting to worship them as gods. And so I'm trying to think about how I would introduce this character or this NPC into the fray and what would make them interesting. And so here's some thoughts that I had that make NPCs interesting to characters. First, have an agenda. NPCs who have an agenda, something that they're working towards, it may be against the player's interests and maybe exactly what the players are trying to accomplish as well. But either way, it had some dynamic, something for the players to latch onto. They understand more headspace of the NPC, what they're trying to accomplish. It makes them, part of the bigger world that they're working in. And I found that for my NPCs, when they had an agenda, for example, I had this game where it was kind of ancient post-apocalypse had happened many thousands of years ago, and now people were sort of coming into this Victorian era, and they found a person who had been put in cryostasis for a long period of time, and they came out and they had something they wanted to do. They weren't just, oh wow, I'm in this new world. It was like, oh, by the way, there's thousands of people just like me. We need to find them. And that made the players kind of interested in what this person had to say or what they were interested in. Second thing, I find that people, at least my players, they kind of latch on if there's something unique about the NPC. What they do, how they act, do they have a quirk? Those quirks they can latch onto and sort of make that, part of their personality that makes them endearing to the player characters. So this individual that I mentioned, who was in cryostasis, he came out and what made him interesting to the players is he had this quirk where everything he ran into, he gauged through the eyes of his past, which was high technology, was amazing. And so he'd always say, well, that's quaint. You do that? Oh, interesting. How quaint. And that how quaint thing played off of this Victorian era where everyone else was going, right. Oh, very good. And so the players kind of latched on and they were like, oh boy, this guy is just everything, yeah, we know we're not as cool as you guys are, but it made him, kind of love-hate relationship with this individual. So something unique, something quirky that the players can latch onto. Another thing is break away from tropes. Don't latch onto the same old, the gruff guard, the burly barkeep who's, boisterous and happy. Make something different. Maybe that guard is actually sort of timid and, he recoils at the player characters and he's more than willing to just let them go through and the players start going, well, wait a second, what's this guy doing? What makes him tick? Maybe they'll start latching onto that. Maybe they'll just bypass. It all depends. So like I mentioned, this character that I had from this post-apocalyptic kind of game, he could have very easily been, sort of a a technology guy who's kind of meek and, sort of that geek nerd kind of guy. But he wasn't. He was like kind of a hard ass, but still not understanding the world around him and sort of, caught in, caught in the headlights, so to speak. But he wasn't like a nerd kind of guy that, oh, he's future guy, he's acting like all nerdy and techie guy. No, he was, he was willing to hold his own. It's like, hey, give me a pistol, I'll do something. And the players really kind of liked that about him. So it kind of broke that trope that you might expect for that particular kind of character. Next thing is they're much more interested in NPCs if they're kind of weaved into the narrative. They've got some reason they exist, and they're trying to. It kind of goes back to their agenda. There's something that they're trying to drive the story, and the players start appreciating that their player characters can interact with somebody who can help them sort of move along with the plot or add to the story. So again, this individual that I talked about, he had an agenda and he tried to push the story forward. Hey, can we go find these guys? There might be something in it for you if you can find them. It'll be great technology and you can take advantage of it. And the players started thinking, yeah, maybe this makes sense. Maybe we should do something along that. It wasn't necessarily a plot that I had, put the NPC in just to push them in that direction. It kind of naturally came out of their interaction and how they talked, and it was like interest in his world and where his world was going. And so all that kind of led to, yeah, here's what he's trying to accomplish and what he thinks might be important. And it turned out it was important to the players. So now it was part of that narrative, part of the story, that his agenda was going to be something that they took on as part of their questing. Now, kind of, what would I say, more the kind of logistics side of it, I guess. When you name the NPC, make it a name that's serious. Joking names sometimes players will pick up, and they'll be, it'd be funny that they'll adopt that NPC who's got a funny name. But generally, they're looking for this person to be a serious part of the story, of the narrative, and so having a name that, or name and the clothes they wear and the things that are about them that fit within that kind of world makes them much more interesting to the player characters than, oh look, haha, it's Bob the dwarf that you ran into. Boy, you should carry him around as a a new mascot. Haha, look how funny it is. But it's not as, I think, compelling to players and player character and their player characters ultimately. And so finally, along with that, they should be endearing to the player characters. There should be something that the players want to connect with and want to lean into. And so this is kind of plays off that uniqueness, but it's an NPC who's always a jackass might be kind of fun and interesting and whatever, but players aren't ever going to be really invested in them, and they're going to try to ignore them at some point. A character that doesn't have something to offer the players with respect to the narrative or whatever. If they just don't offer anything to players, the players aren't really going to pick up on it. It's possible that in some cases on that initial run in, the players decide there is something interesting, even if there is or not, and they push that kind of agenda forward. Well, then you can take that, and now suddenly the NPC does have an agenda. NPC does have a quirk about them or something that the players find interesting that they want to follow. So that's kind of the last thing. So what did I talk about? They should have an agenda, something that the players can understand, something unique, something that the players can connect with, a quirk, what have you. Break away from the tropes. Tropes are cool, and that might be great, for players in your game. They may be looking for that, but in my game, doing that analysis, it seems like, people who aren't just, dyed-in-the-wool tropes are the ones that the players kind of latch onto and are interesting. Weave them into the narrative. They should be there for a reason. Logistically, make them fit the world, make them serious, part of the world and not just some kind of joke, and make them endearing to the player characters. So those were some of the ideas I came up with as I was trying to figure out how this NPC is going to fit into my new world, and how do I make it so the players will find them interesting and latch on to them and kind of pull them into the story and be part of this NPC story. Well, so that is the ideas. I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Again, I hope you liked it. I hope you liked some of the other videos. Please like, subscribe. It'd be really cool to hit 1,000 someday, just because it'd be cool, not because we're looking to be famous. Thanks again. Talk to you later. Bye. I'm stuck in